Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when you realize not everyone who walks with you walks for you. Some walk beside you not to lift you up, but to drain your light. We call them by many names. But today, I want to speak about the one we often fear, the one that manipulates hearts and twists truths, the narcissist. You see, I have always believed that we teach people how to treat us. But how do we teach someone who refuses to learn, refuses to listen, and refuses to feel? How do you recognize someone who wears a mask so well that even your intuition begins to question itself? Today, I will tell you this. You can expose a narcissist with just one question, not to shame them, but to set yourself free. One honest question can reveal 1,000 hidden truths. There is something incredibly powerful about simplicity, how a few words can cut through the noise and reach the heart of what's real. We live in a world that often encourages us to stay quiet, to keep the peace, to avoid rocking the boat, even when our soul is drowning. But silence in the face of emotional manipulation is not peace, it is self-abandonment. And it happens one small compromise at a time. The truth is, people often show you who they are in the moments when you ask for nothing but honesty. It doesn't take a confrontation, a dramatic scene, or a long list of accusations to unmask a person's true character. It takes one sincere, question gentle, direct, and rooted in your pain, not in your anger. Because the moment you ask someone where they were when you needed them the most, you're not just asking about geography, you're asking about emotional presence. You're asking, were you willing to hold space for me when I was falling apart? You're asking, was that convenience or a commitment? And the moment they answer or avoid answering, you see it all with painful clarity. You see how some people are only present when it benefits them, how they disappear. The moment your needs become an inconvenience. You see how their care was conditional, their love was performative, and their loyalty was temporary. And maybe it breaks your heart in that moment, but it also frees your spirit because you no longer have to beg for breadcrumbs of affection from someone who never planned to stay for the storm. You no longer have to convince yourself that silence is compassion, or that distance is maturity, or that avoidance is peace. You just ask the question and finally, you see the truth. Your voice is your power. Use it to break free, not to stay silent. There is a moment in every journey when you realize that your silence has become a prison, not because you don't have something to say, but because every time you tried to say it, someone made you feel like your words were too much, too dramatic, too sensitive, too inconvenient, too confrontational. And so you stayed quiet, not out of strength, but out of fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as difficult or emotional. But silence doesn't heal the wound, it only buries it deeper inside you, where it festers and eats away at your sense of self. Your voice is not a weapon, it is a compass. It points you back to who you really are, underneath all the roles you play to please others. When you finally speak, not to argue, not to accuse, but to express what is true for you, you begin the sacred process of healing. You begin to honor the parts of yourself that were silenced for far too long. The trembling voice, the nervous heart, the quiet. I deserve better. They are all proof that courage is rising. And maybe not everyone understand you. And maybe some will still try to twist your truth into something selfish. But that's not your burden to carry. Your job is not to convince them. It is to liberate yourself. Because when you use your voice to break free, you send a message to every part of you that once felt small and unseen. You say, I see you, I hear you, and I will never silence you again. You cannot fix someone who thrives on breaking others. There is a sacred ache that comes from loving someone who does not love themselves, but insists on controlling the love you give them. You try so hard to understand them, to heal them, to make excuses for the cruelty they hide behind charm. You tell yourself they are hurting, that they don't mean to lash out, that if you just love them harder, maybe they'll change. But the deeper truth is they do not want healing. They want power. They do not want connection. They want control. And the more you try to fix them, the more they break you in the process. You give until your soul is tired, your joy is dimmed, and your self-worth is barely recognizable. But still you stay because you believe love is sacrifice and loyalty means endurance. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize you have become a stranger to yourself. That is when the shift begins, not from hate, but from awakening. You realize that fixing someone who benefits from your brokenness is not compassion, it's self-neglect. You understand that some people thrive only when others shrink, that their comfort comes from your confusion. And while you may never get the apology or the closure or the validation, you can give yourself something far more powerful. You can give yourself permission to leave, to grieve, to reclaim your light without asking for it back from someone who stole it. You don't have to carry the burden of their healing anymore. You just have to choose your own. Walking away is not weakness. It's wisdom wrapped in courage. There is something deeply misunderstood about walking away. People think it's giving up, that it's quitting, that it's weakness in disguise. But sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do, especially when your heart still hopes and your love still lingers. It takes a strength not everyone will understand to turn your back on something that once felt like home, even if that home was built on hurt. Because when your soul is starving, but you keep feeding someone else's ego, you slowly disappear inside your own life. You silence your needs, dim your light, soften your boundaries until one day you look around and realize you're not living. You're just enduring, and that is not what you were made for. You were not made to be anyone's emotional punching bag or psychological project. You were made to feel deeply, love freely, and be treated with dignity, not conditionally, but consistently. So when you finally gather the courage to walk away, you are not breaking down, you are breaking free. You are choosing to stop negotiating your worth with someone who could never see it. And that choice, as painful as it is sacred. Because wisdom whispers in moments the heart doesn't want to hear, that you can love someone and still let them go. That staying doesn't always mean strength, and leaving doesn't always mean loss. You are not abandoning them, you are returning to yourself. And when you do, when you walk away from what hurts, even while your hands still shake and your voice still cracks, you are rewriting the definition of power, not with noise or revenge, but with stillness and grace. Because real power is knowing when to stop watering what refuses to grow. At the end of the day, so now, you know, it doesn't take a war of words to expose the truth. It doesn't take shouting, blaming, or begging. It takes one question, just one. Where were you when I needed you the most? Let it sit, let it breathe, let them answer. Because how someone responds to your pain tells you everything. This question isn't asked with bitterness, it's asked with clarity. It's not about revenge, it's about revelation. It's not to shame them, it's to set you free. You don't need to win their validation. You don't need to collect more red flags to finally believe your intuition. You don't need to keep proving your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. The moment you ask that question, the fog starts to lift. The manipulation loses its grip, the mask begins to crack, and you begin to rise. Not because you had all the answers, but because you finally asked the right question. Because you stopped shrinking for their comfort and started expanding into your own truth. You see, exposing a narcissist isn't about calling them out. It's about calling yourself back into your worth, back into your peace, back into your power. It's choosing to trust what you feel, to speak, even when your voice trembles, to walk away, even when your heart lingers. It's remembering that the most powerful shift doesn't always come with noise sometimes. It arrives in silence, in honesty, in one simple soul-led question. And when you ask it, you don't just uncover who they are, you finally remember who you are.